Yo, Trev. You know what time it is?
It's showtime, Jay.
Well, hey, man, you know what that means.
I believe that means it's time to get this thing rocking and rolling.
Well, hit the music, big fella, and let's go.
All right, let's go. Hello and welcome to The Game Plan. Our show is brought to you by Bringing the Heat Media and 4D Leaders. This show is dedicated to using sports to create positive change. So be ready to get inspired, uplifted, and empowered through thought-provoking conversations specific to the world of youth sports with some of the top minds in the game. I'm your co-host, Trevor Rosenthal, MLB All-Star and single-season save record holder for the St. Louis Cardinals, with Jason Holzer, co-founder of 4D Leaders and best-selling author. Jason, what's up, man?
Trev, man.
What?
I got some news for you, buddy.
What do you got?
It's good and bad. It's good and bad, but somebody broke your record.
No, Jay, come on, man. Don't do this to me.
I'm sorry, but you're now number 2. But the good news is he's on the show today, man. So we're going to bring on Ryan Helsley today. And so he's going to be the new record holder. So sorry, you got to slide over just a little bit.
Hey, this is, I'm happy to slide over. Let me tell you what. Okay, so when I broke the record, it was like I could not believe the names that I was associated with at that time. It was like I never imagined having my names on the record board for such a storied franchise like the St. Louis Cardinals, such a successful franchise in baseball history. And I mean, this is right. Like, records are meant to be broken, first of all. But secondly, I mean, I thought I was in good company before. I'm even in better company now. Ryan Helsley, he's a stud. He's doing things better than I ever dreamed of. So, I passing on the torch, whatever you want to call it. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic for Ryan and the success that he's having. I know how hard it is to have this sort of success at the highest level, and he's just getting started, man. So, I'll let you introduce him, but I'm thrilled that he's taking the time out of his schedule to be here with us today and share his thoughts and wisdom with our audience.
Well, like you said, Trevor, we got our special guest today who brings the heat, man. He's an electric closer who broke the St. Louis Cardinals record. It's Ryan Helsley today. Oklahoma native is more than just a dominant force on the mound. From his roots to Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where he honed in his skills, to his college days at Northeastern State, Ryan Helsley has always defied expectations from a fifth-round pick who quickly rose through the ranks. This all-star became synonymous with the lights-out pitching. Please welcome the man who got ice in his veins and fire in his arms, Ryan Helsley. Ryan, thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Hey, first question, though, I got to know. Off-season, you got to Salmonellas and get some caps in Tahlequah yet?
Yeah, I love Salmonellas. Sadly, I do not live in Tahlequah anymore. I actually moved to Tulsa, but I still frequently visit my hometown. And, I definitely try to hit that place a lot. They got some good pizza and some good food.
Yeah, no, definitely.
He's big time now. He moved up to the big city of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
From Tahlequah to Tulsa. That's right. Well, hey, man, looking back at your journey to the majors, like, who was a coach that really stood out to you during your youth, early playing days, just getting started with baseball, that made it, that gave you the love of the game, that made it fun? And what specific qualities from that coach do you really remember that helped you, really want to keep playing and keep getting better, for that matter?
Yeah, I feel like my story is probably similar to a lot of kids. The dads coach them growing up, and I was no different. And I think the only difference I had was I had a twin brother, so we were always competing with, everything. It didn't matter if it was baseball or checkers or, trying to be the first one in line to get a plate at dinner. It didn't matter. We were always competing. And I just think having my dad around, there was one thing that he always instilled in me and my brothers when we were young, and that was just try to be the best you can be at whatever it is. It was, as a kid, you always dream of, I always put an NFL player or a Major League Baseball player on all the little sheets we got as kids. And, but, as a father, you try to be realistic, I think, and, not hold your kids back, but, temper expectations to a certain extent. And, his thing was always just give it your all at whatever you're doing in life, so people can depend on you and you won't have any regrets in life. And I think that's something that's always stuck with me and my brothers.
Yeah. I love your mentality, too. I remember right after you broke the record, you said that you were talking to Jimmy Hayes, and you said you looked at Trevor Rosenthal one spring training, and you're like, hey, if that guy can do it, then maybe I can do it as well. And I love that belief. Like, you weren't intimidated by it, but you were more inspired. And so many kids get intimidated when they see somebody like really succeed, or they see an elite level player. Talk about how maybe kids can like see somebody and inspire themselves as opposed to being more intimidated.
Yeah, I think a big thing is, not comparing yourself to other people, so to speak. I think that's the hardest thing we as humans do sometimes, is like looking at other people and comparing and competing with them instead of just competing with ourselves. I think we can be our own biggest doubter and biggest critic, but also the biggest supporter of ourselves as well, and I think if you as a kid, and I struggle with it too, but if you can just compete with yourself and drive yourself each and every day, I think that's a big one. And I think I learned that in the minor leagues, and Trevor can probably attest to this. There's 13 pitchers on the roster, and you can't wait to make it up to the next level, and you're competing theoretically against all those 13 guys to get to AA or AAA, and you hear some guys down there, I don't know if I'd say wishing bad upon you, but like, they might give it a little fist pump if you give up a homer or two here, because your stats are getting a little worse, they're looking a little better, So I think I learned that early on in the minor leagues from some older guys, and just talking to guys, being around them, and if you can just compete with yourself and control what you can control, really is I think the key to things.
Yeah, that's that reminds me of a story or a piece of advice that I got right at the time when I was drafted. I was selected in the draft. I remember getting the phone call, and at the time, talking to a coach that I had in junior college in southern Kansas. And what he told me, he said, that's great. You're on this great path. You have this awesome opportunity, but don't forget where you came from. Don't forget your roots. And that's something that always stuck with me. And as you unpack it, it goes like even deeper. And I think you could talk about it to that extent of when you're a baseball player at a young age, the thought of wishing bad upon somebody, especially your own teammate, doesn't ever enter your mind. You're just showing up and you're just competing. You're loving the game and you're trying to do the best you can. But then somewhere along the way, especially, for good reason, right? Like, it's a business at some point. Like, you're trying to put food on your table and provide for yourself and your family. Like, the mindset starts to shift. But when you keep that in perspective of, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my best, a lot of other things tend to take care of themselves, and kind of thinking about somebody else can be a distraction. So, for you, what were some lessons that you had from a coach or something valuable beyond the game itself that stuck with you throughout your career?
Yeah, I think, I played football growing up all through high school, and baseball was my first love. But when I got to high school, I really fell in love with football, and I think getting to play with, my twin brother, like I mentioned earlier, and everything and stuff. And there's just something different about playing, under the Friday night lights. And, so in high school, I really kind of developed like that football mentality, almost, just learning that gritty, tough mentality you get from football. And that's why I really found the love for the weight room, and I remember our coach always talking about, you wanted to deliver the blow, not take the blow, and, the weight room is just effort. And my eyes, it's just, you can get as much out of it as you put into it. And so that was something that always drove me, that I picked up from them, that I think that I carried over to baseball, is kind of similar to what my dad, taught us, was, you can kind of get out what you put in into pretty much anything in life.
Yeah, it's so true. And to put that into context for, a parent or a coach that's listening, and they have a very small understanding of what being a professional athlete looks like. It's a 24/7, 365 job, even more so today than it's ever been. The landscape of professional sports is uber competitive. And if you want to even have the opportunity to compete, you have to be doing everything you can, whether it's in the weight room, whether how you're fueling yourself and how you're sleeping at night. And jumping in this conversation today with Ryan Helsley, he had just gotten done with a workout where his mind and his focus is on training. You might say, why is he in the weight room? It's October 15th. Like, we're in the postseason. The season just ended. He should be taking some time off. Like, no, Ryan is in a position where he's already preparing for next year. And, this mentality is like what you said. It's what it takes to be successful in any domain. You have to be willing to do not only your best, but a lot of the time willing to do what you don't want to do, or certainly what a lot of other people don't want to do. So my encouragement to you is, man, hey, keep it up. Like, I love seeing the success that you're having. on the field, but I know that success is because of what you're doing right now and how you've prepared and all that hard work that really no one ever sees. So shedding some light on that big picture.
Yeah, and Ryan too. I know you've been in a lot of locker rooms. You've been in a lot of teams at a lot of different levels. From your perspective as a player, how important is it for coaches to create a supportive and positive environment? And what are some best practices you've seen coaches do to be able to put that in and build a culture from that?
Yeah, I think just, for younger kids, honestly, I think it's just making sure they're having fun. I've had parents ask me, to give kids lessons a lot. And, they're like, what can my kid do? And I'm like, your 12-year-old is going to change so much by the time they grow into their body. I think the main thing is just to confine that competitive mode in your mind and just to go out there and love to compete and just enjoy the grind, because your body's going to change so much. And even when you get to 18, you got to fill out and put on muscle and, you're going to get bigger. So you're always changing and adapting. But I think for one thing, if, coaches in general at all levels is just to help kids find that competition level. And Trevor can attest to this too at the major league level, it's even finer. It's just the difference in someone, being good and bad is so small. And I think it's definitely between the ears. And it's just finding a way to trick yourself on the days you don't feel good, because you have a lot of them. But at that level, I think, the really good ones are able to tell themselves that they feel great, they're prepared and they've done everything that they can do to prepare for that moment, and worrying about it's not going to fix it. You just got to go out there and have some fun, and take it back to the, old days when you were running around as a kid.
Yeah, let's spend a second here, because this I saw a really good example of this. I want to talk about your mindset, but I'll share a quick example that I saw with the New York Yankees in the series that they had coming into game 1 of the NLCS yesterday. So Carlos Rodon, in his first start against, was it the Guardians, I believe, or
Kansas City, maybe?
Kansas City, the Royals. You're right. In the first inning, he comes out. He's feeling good. You can tell he's full of energy on the mound, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a tough day for this Royals lineup. But then as the game goes on, and if you look back even on social media and you check the highlights, you would have thought that he absolutely dominated. But you check the box score, and he didn't. He actually ended up being really responsible for the loss in that game. Mm-hmm. And he came out afterwards, and specifically came out after watching Garrett Cole go and dominate later in the series. And he said, I have to be better at playing the game. I have to be better at playing poker, is the analogy that he gave, of not letting the opposition know either if I'm too high or too low. And you kind of hit on this. I mean, what is your mental approach, and what are kind of the games that you're playing in the high leverage position as a closer?
Yeah, it's definitely changed this year. It was the first year I really, closed for the all season. I think I only had 2 outings where I threw more than 3 outs, and I'd almost say it's a little easier to ride that high as a closer, because you're only out there for 10 minutes, maybe 15, hopefully 15 pitches or less. But I think where it gets hard is when you have those up downs, and this is where it falls into starters, and probably what Carlos, struggle with is you can have that one good inning, but you go sit down and, you fall all the way down from that kind of mental high and body high that you had. Now you got to go back out there and try to figure out how to get that back, and I think, the great starters in the game are able to do that for, 6, 7, 8 innings and, hour and a half to 2 hours instead of just that 10 minutes for one inning now. And I think that's a big thing, that, when you struggle as a starter, that could be, something you look forward to find that mental trigger that can get you locked in. And, for me as a closer, the games, when it's close in the 5th and 6th, you're like, all right, I might get in there now, your nerves are starting to go a little bit. And then, you have your pregame routine, and then, all right, the 8th inning ends, and, you just start talking to yourself and telling yourself, like, what I do is, I tell myself, I'm ready, I'm prepared, there's nothing else I can do. I'm going to go out there and just have fun and lay it all on the line. And that's kind of, where I leave it. And, I like to just go out there and just, have fun, honestly.
Yeah. And you kind of said, like, it's this intentionality behind the self-talk that you're having. And so for parents and coaches, I mean, this is something I have 3 daughters that are getting to the point where we can start working on some of these things. And I know you're a dad also, and you have an influence in the sports community, but that self-talk of how you're preparing mentally, of what you're focusing on is so important. But I want to talk about it in the terms of consistency. To do what Ryan Helsley has done, to go out and have the sort of season back to back, since 2022, the success that you've been having, it takes a consistent effort. Like there's no one time, you're not just getting a workout in on October 15th and now you're going to shut it down. Like you got to wake up every single day. You're training your body, but you're also training your mind in that same respect, because those highs, those really high highs, they're going to come, and the really low lows are going to come as well. And you have to find out a way. So like that would be my encouragement, or really like a takeaway for a parent or coach listening at home is, start training your athletes in this way. And it's going to become monotonous. It's going to become repetitious. And they might get tired of hearing it, but those are the habits. Those are those positive habits that we want to build as early as possible. And it sounds like your dad did a great job of that. I mean, so talk about the competitive. I think being competitive is super important in all domains, and sports is a great avenue to exercise that. But are there things that you do off the field? Are there things that you're still doing today with your brother where you're pushing each other in some other aspect?
Yeah, I've talked to like our mental strength guy a little bit in St. Louis, and I really just kind of the light bulb went off in my head this year. You can't replicate game speed or game reps anyway. There's just no replicating it. So when you're out there, it's for me, I like to live in the moment. I mean, obviously I'm in the moment, but I like to like really take it all in so I know how to better prepare, even though I've done it, a couple hundred times now, but like I'm still trying to learn. And I think that's a big thing, is always trying to learn. And I also try to like find ways to compete off the field, ways that I can trigger that mindset of that, locked in and focusedness, because there's not many ways, like I said, you can replicate game speed, but you can, whether it's going golfing or some other sport, throwing darts, whatever it is, that little half second of focus that you really have to execute whatever you're trying to execute. I think it's big for all sports, and in life in general, whatever you may be doing, that, you can kind of get practice and grow from. And, I think you can really benefit from stuff like that.
100%. It translates. That's one of the things when I'm talking to a young professional baseball player who hasn't quite made it to the major leagues. And even if we're in the off season and we start throwing bullpens, and I tell them, I'm like, hey man, like I know you're just like getting the reps in and you're, getting your exercise and getting your arm in shape to go to spring training. But how about this? How about in this mound session, you picture yourself Game 7 of the World Series. This is an inning, like the moment's on the line, and you have to execute this pitch in order to win. And it kind of it's that moment, whether you're in your sport or outside of the sport, of preparation, right? Like, so when you get into those big moments, it's like, I've already been here. I have the upper hand, and now I'm able to, like you said, game speed, whether you're in business, you're making decisions that are going to affect the company long term, or you're making pitches in a game that's going to determine the fate of your season. Like, things happen a lot faster than you could ever train for. So we have to be intentional about all the steps we're taking up to that moment. So, I mean,
to piggyback off that, Trevor. So, like for parents, like I have an 8 and a 5-year-old, and what I'll do is like I'll say, hey, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, and I'll throw a fly ball in the air. I was like, you catch it, you just won the World Series, and like they'll catch it, like, oh yeah, like so like as parents, you can make it fun too, right? Of just like throwing out these scenarios for your kids, and if they don't catch, like, hey man, no big deal, we'll just do it again, it'll be fun again, But like you mentioned though, it can. As a parent, as somebody that coaches younger kids, how do you make those moments where they see on TV come to life in their own imagination? And I think as athletes get older, I think they lose some of that imagination because they get so like into I got to do this, But like sometimes playing your own imagination is fun. Like it kind of loosens you up a little bit too, right? So
yeah, this is
a guess.
Yeah, no, that reminds me of so this is kind of like an embarrassing story, but last week I went and did my first ever like public speaking. I got invited to come and speak at an event, which I've never done before. There's a group of like 60 people almost, which, man, I was kind of scared, but you would find me the days leading up to it. So I'm in my hotel room in a mirror, like practicing talking to myself, recording it on my phone, listening back to it. And I'm like, man, I probably look like such a weirdo right now. But I knew when I got on the stage that I was going to be overcome with the adrenaline and the emotions that come with this opportunity. I mean, excitement, like, right? And I wanted to best be prepared. So I had to really make myself uncomfortable, but make sure that I was prepared to execute when the lights turned on, right? Like, cause that game speed, I mean, I had a 45-minute window, and the 45 minutes went by like it was like 5 minutes. I couldn't believe the speed at which it performed. And I understand now why people like getting on stage. It's very similar to being an athlete and having that opportunity to compete on the field. So, yeah, I mean, okay, so let's talk about this now. Like reaching the highest level of baseball, what advice would you give to youth coaches who are working with aspiring athletes?
That's a good
I
question.
mean, you've hit on it. I mean, talking about in terms of like the skills necessarily, like not necessarily specific to the baseball, but just to reach their full potential in general. And you know, you talked about it a little bit with your dad, but maybe in terms of like coaching, if you were working with a group of young kids, like, hey, like these are the types of things that I see from my teammates in the major league clubhouse, and this is the reason that these guys are consistently as successful as they are.
Yeah, I think honestly, just challenging guys, you know, like ask them what they really want from it. You know, do you see yourself having a future in this? And if so, you know, how do you get there? You know, I think that's something, you know, looking back on my career, it was like, you know, I got drafted at like 200. Now I'm like 230, you know, so I put on 30, 35 pounds, you know, since I got drafted. And, you know, it's been a continuation of work over, you know, 12 years now, since I started really pitching. And I think just understanding that, you know, the grind never stops, you know, no matter what field you're in. You know, I think in life, sometimes we think something's going to get easier and stop, but it truly never is. You know, there's always work and there's always tomorrow. And I think a big thing too for me, especially in this game in baseball, Trevor, and you can attest to this, is just being present in the moment. Because you play so many games, it's so easy, especially if you blow a game. You know, you look ahead, it's like, man, tomorrow I'm facing the same lineup and I'm getting loose, and I got the same 2 out of 3 guys. You know, and it's like you can really do a number on yourself if you let yourself. You know, but I think really for me, making progress in my career has been able to focus one day at a time and honestly not wish time away. You know, like middle of the season, I wish it was the off season. Like, no, this is what I trained for. This is what I prepared for. This is what you live for. You know, you only have this moment once and you're never going to get it back. So don't waste time, because time is precious.
That's a great way to wrap up the show today, man. And I really feel like it goes back to just your belief system, right? Like, you know, you just believe in who you are and your work ethic. And Ryan, I really appreciate you taking the time and really sharing your wisdom and sharing some about your life growing up. And you know, best of luck to you moving forward. Hopefully you continue to, you know, rack up those saves, and but even in life too, man, as well. So where can people connect with you? How can people, you know, follow what you're doing moving forward?
I'm decently active on Instagram. Maybe I post like once a month, but that's about it. Honestly, I try to stay off of social media, especially during the season. There's so many negative things out there, you know, especially if you blow a game or something, you're the worst pitcher ever. Then the next night, you know, everybody loves you. So I try to stay away from all that and just try to stay as even keel as I possibly can.
Well, we're always in your corner, man. We're always cheering you on no matter the outcomes, because we know, like we talked about today, all the things that make Ryan Helsley who he is. It's we talked about, just like a quick recap, like that competitive nature, exercising that competitive muscle, not being afraid to do the work, right? Like Ryan's a great example of hard work ethic and the results that come from putting in the work. And then on top of that, always being eager to learning, asking questions, and leaning on those around you, and how you can continue to develop in whatever domain you're in. And these are all character traits that are valuable to learn at a young age. So, man, we appreciate you coming on and sharing this wisdom today. A guy that's in the prime of his career, and he's going out, he's breaking and setting records, man. I can't tell you how much this means to us, and this is some great stuff for parents and coaches to take away from our conversation today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Well, Trevor, man, great show as always. Excited about some of our guests we got coming up. Guys similar to Helsley that have a great background, great knowledge to share. Make sure you follow Trevor on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as share the show with a coach, parent, or athlete in youth sports. It could be the thing that helps them shift their perspective to make youth sports a great experience.
Yep, and much like Ryan Helsley, we want to unlock all that foreseen potential in each and every one of us, especially in the next generation of youth athletes. So also be sure to check out 4D Leaders newsletter and check out our resources for parents, coaches, and athletes. Remember to follow 4D Leaders and Jason on social media as well. we have some dynamic content coming your way.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode. I'll definitely say, man, that was lit. So give us 5 stars and leave a review. Thank you for tuning into the Game Plan Show. We will see you next time.
Good.